This one is a more modern science fiction or possibly space opera of the genre where you've got military in space, so militaristic science fiction, something. Anyway, it's a number one in a series. I hadn't heard of Elizabeth Moon at all when I picked up a couple of her books off, I think it was Bookfest, Lifeline Books Fest table. And because I didn't know what I was doing and I'd never heard of them, I actually ended up reading number two first before I read this one. It didn't matter in the least bit, it worked just fine. So I rated it originally on Goodreads back in a year or two ago. 3 stars as a thoroughly enjoyable space opera romp with a great female lead character, good secondary characters, interesting plot arcs, and enjoyable writing style. It stayed in my mind. It has stayed in my mind a lot more than many other books have. And I kept coming back to Elizabeth Moon and being interested in books, and I've actually picked it up a few times and reread sections that I really enjoyed. Sign of a good book. So I'm definitely hanging on to this one, and I'd like to reread them one and then two in the right order sometime. So in this one, our main character is Hera Serrano. She comes from a long line of officers in the RSS, and I have forgotten what that acronym stands for because in any military, acronyms are sort of like lifeblood, but acronyms only really work while you're in the military and they're relevant. Anyway, military in space. You've got a world building where you've got a whole heap of various planets scattered around the universe, and there's a sort of loose association, and it's got a military branch. This is the military branch. Now, she's resigned her commission in disgrace and is in the process of finding her way in the civilian world. She finds a post as captain for a rich and influential old woman's luxury yacht, and the author starts with a very intriguing literary dance of developing these two main characters for us, as they both discover they've got preconceptions about each other that are completely wrong. Hera Serrano thinks that anyone who's wealthy enough to have a luxury yacht isn't worth much, and the main character, would you say that she's a main character? Anyway, the dance is good. So the luxury yacht's called the Sweet Delight, and it's one of Harris's first challenges. For anyone who likes military style fiction, it's a lot of fun. Its previous captain had held a slack crew with agendas of its own, and she comes from a military background, so she isn't having any of that. Harris sorts out the crew, does her best to modify her service attitude to civilianship, but still isn't putting up with a lot of nonsense. There's a small clutch of young people that are accompanying her employer's nephew into an exile of disgrace. Entitled and arrogant, the nephew Ronnie needs to be taken down a peg in Harris's methods of civilizing her employer's bratty young nephew, a pure delight to read. Don't we all know someone who's got a bratty teen-year-old who deserves to be smacked repeatedly until they become human? Elizabeth Moon, she does it well. The grand finale of the novel occurs on a destination planet where grand fox hunting season is in progress, and it turns out that there's a much more sinister hunting season occurring as well. So it was interesting for me in that because I'd read number 2, I already knew some of the characters, but I absolutely loved the way Hera Serrano was developed in this one. I loved her attitude on being disgraced in the military and moving on. I really enjoyed what Elizabeth Moon does writing-wise. It's not a short book. It's around about the 360 page mark, and it's 360 pages of small font writing, so you need good light for it. Thoroughly enjoyable. It made me want to go on to the next one. It made me start collecting Elizabeth Moon, because while I enjoyed number 2, the development of Hera Serrano's character and the extra world building you get in this first one was really what did it for me. So I do recommend this. I gave it a 3-star on Goodreads. I'll link Goodreads below. I'm leaving it as 3-star until I've reread it and can do the more extensive review that I feel it deserves. Let me know what you think about this novel. I'm sure there's lots of people out there who've read this one. Unlike some of the books I review, this one is contemporary and it's popular and it's got a wide readership. So I'd be fascinated to hear what other people think.